We strike with the wrath of the righteous!
Right, that's it. We're on. We're live. We're live from the top of the Watchtower. I don't know if you heard. You know, like the last time that we actually did the thing. Did you hear my intro when I was all like, "Raise the drawbridge," and you could hear like the drawbridge raising? I created sound effects. It was good. It was nice, wasn't it? So last time we spoke, didn't we, for like too long?
Far too long.
And then I attempted to reduce that time down to what I decided was going to be an hour.
And your iPod.
Turned out it ended up being an hour and 25 minutes because it was the first one ever. True story for those of you listening. I actually went blind in one eye. That's a real life story because all of this was new to me. So I'm a bit of an insomniac anyway. So I spent far too long doing far too much, far too late on a laptop, which got a few sniggers at work. I'm not going to lie to you.
I think you should take it as a sign. In the Bible it does say, an eye for an eye.
An eye for an eye. Yes, it does, an eye for an eye. We're joined again by Norris.
Hello.
Say hi, Norris.
Hi, Norris.
I knew you'd say that. So
predictable.
No, Norris is back. He did say in the first episode that he didn't plan to come back, but I've decided that he's back.
By popular demand, one person asked for me to come back.
One person said, "Who's that Norris guy? And why the hell does he not have a Twitter account?" Okay, so episode 2 is going to actually have some form of structure. I've decided to pick a theme. No doubt if you're listening to this, you'll already know the theme because you'll have seen it on iTunes, where it is now available, or on Stitcher, where it is now available.
What's Stitcher?
Or on YouTube. Stitcher is, it's like you can sort of live, you sort of live stream radio programs from around the world, as well as podcasts. So it's all more or less I think it's all for free actually. I think everything's for free. So you can just, you know, like if you're at a foreign destination or something, you can still listen to things, you know, from around the world.
How are you going to pay me if no one's paying you for this?
I paid in the form of wine.
I'll do.
If you listen to last episode, you'll remember that I was flabbergasted. Yeah, that's a good word. I was flabbergasted that we'd run out of wine, and I said, "Where is Jesus when you need him? Because we've loads of water." So I decided, I thought I'd bring a box of wine instead of bottles. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so no doubt you'll have seen the title if you've looked at this to download it or looked at it because I decided to tweet about it. The title is Why I Am Not a Jehovah's Witness. You'll have already known from last time that I'm a former Jehovah's Witness. Sometimes I'm not too sure whether or not to say that, like, former Jehovah's Witness, because people assume that I was, like, you know, heavily entrenched. But the true story is, if you've read the man bio on the website, you'll already know that I left just as I was about to turn 16, I think. So I was never actually baptized. So I say former Jehovah's Witness, but I wasn't shunned like most Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's what mattered. So my upbringing was still heavily indoctrinated, but I feel like I got off light because a lot of the things that most Jehovah's Witnesses have had to go through by leaving the faith. I'm not going to be too specific, but a member of my family was heavily shunned. So she's no longer part of it. And I can't remember actually because it was before I was in my early teens, so I can't really remember whether or not she decided to. You can decide to disassociate yourself, which is kind of like slightly more honourable. So if you're doing things wrong, you know, by wrong I mean if you're doing things wrong according to Jehovah's Witnesses, you can decide to leave the faith and announce your resignation, I guess. Or you can just do whatever you like, and then eventually they will disfellowship you. And I think disfellowship's viewed as much more harsh.
It's so different from the Catholic Church because generally what happens in the Catholic Church is you get baptised just after you're born, so obviously you don't know anything about it. You're raised a Catholic, and then at some point, I wouldn't like to say most people, but anybody who decides that they're not going to be Catholic anymore just stops doing whatever Catholics do. They just don't go to church, basically. That's the only one. They just stop going to church. And, yeah, you might get the odd person saying, oh, I didn't see you at church on Sunday. And all you have to say is, yeah, I don't go to church anymore. And they go, all right, okay. And that's it.
But I'm still heavily spiritual.
There's no shunning. I mean, yeah, fair enough. You have to carry the tag of Catholicism for the rest of your life. But
you don't.
You don't. I know.
You don't.
But okay. But who could be asked to get rid of it? What's the point? You might as well just stay Catholic.
They've set up a website.
Not practice.
You can officially renounce your Catholicism, renounce the Holy Spirit, which apparently is it's the only sin that can never be forgiven. Yeah, that's it's a good point, that, because that's one of the reasons why they're happy to keep you on the books. Basically, I think Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're very sort of cultish, they can and will shun, because it's all about inclusivity and exclusivity.
There's only 144,000 places, so you need to make sure there's a few spare seats in heaven.
If you don't know about that, the Norris is alluding to the places that are in heaven for Jehovah's Witnesses from the earthly realm, and the places number 144,000.
It's all over Catholics. It must be a little bit like Parliament, where like certain political parties have only a very small number of seats.
Yeah.
But there's like loads of seats for Conservatives and Labour. But if you're in like a weird sort of loony party, you might have one seat.
Yeah, the monster raving loony party, they just get one seat in heaven. They're just one guy just raving up in the middle of all the Catholics.
How do they come up with that number, 144,000? What's the relevance of that number?
Well, it's something that's in the Bible, but I don't want to get into that, because we're gonna actually try and keep this into like some kind of podcast that goes by its title instead of us just like randomly talking about crap. Yeah?
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's not crap, but I want it to be involved in a singular podcast. Anyway, okay. This episode is entitled "Why I Am Not a Jehovah's Witness." There are many reasons, but actually, I might as well do the housekeeping before we get on. Obviously, this is the Watchtower&Awakening Podcast, so feel free to visit watchtower&awakening.com. You may even be listening to this from there, in which case you'll see the little links to the right-hand side, where you can subscribe via iTunes or Stitcher, or just stick with the YouTube account. If you want me on Twitter, I guess just me until Norris decides to join us. It's at Apostate Awake, both capital A's, capital A Apostate, capital A Awake, all one word. Okay. So, why am I not a Jehovah's Witness?
You tell me.
Why do you think?
Because
it's not just because it's batshit crazy. Okay. There's two reasons that I wanted this to be like one of the first, or the first real podcast, if you will. One, because on the first one you spoke miles too much, so we all know about you.
Hello.
Selfish. Secondly, because it's kind of driven by me, and I got a question. I've got a few questions from people. One of the ones that hit home really, which I thought would sort of kill two birds with one stone, was from somebody that I follow on Twitter. And his handle is @unbelief, capital U, capital B, unbelief. And he tweeted me on the 2nd of February, and it said, I'm just going to read it out. Honest question. I have a friend who is a JW. What was it that first started to lead you away from the truth? And truth is in, inverted commas with a capital T, because they claim the ultimate truth, the only truth, They're not false like all the other religions that basically claim almost exactly the same thing but ever so slightly different, So I tweeted back, wow, I can't tweet it all, too much to go on, but the short version is Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, and sex. Those are really the three main things. There's a huge amount that we can go on, which will obviously come up in future podcasts, of course they will, but I just basically wanted to break down the why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, or figure out what kind of things didn't ring true for me when I was younger. Bearing in mind, because I left when I was like 15, 16, my whole experience was like as a youth, as a teenager, and because it didn't really stick, it didn't really make sense to me, I kind of walked away at that point. But when I walked away, I didn't walk away for theological reasons. It wasn't because I thought, oh, well, this scripture says that, and that doesn't respond with, that doesn't make sense as far as that scripture is concerned. It wasn't that kind of a thing. I didn't really have the theological basis. I could never have argued with any Jehovah's Witness about what I thought was right or wrong, or what was morally depraved or anything. I couldn't figure those things out because I had one version of the story, and that was all. Have you ever heard of Plato's Cave?
No.
The long story cut short, it's like a big subject, but basically Plato's Cave is, if you've got somebody inside a cave and they've only ever seen the inside of the cave is their world. They don't know about the world outside.
Okay.
And that's kind of like that's why it's always likened to religiously motivated sort of dogma, their ideologies, because if you've only ever experienced that one thing, you don't know what's outside of that thing. Matt Dillahunty, who's like one of the main presenters on the Atheist Experience. Right. I've heard him say a few times that he didn't even know like that being atheist was an option. It's not that he was stupid when he was a Christian. It's just that he was a Christian because he was a Christian because he was a Christian. He didn't realise that he could pick something else. He just thought all of the religions are wrong. Christianity is right. Atheism wasn't a thing. It was something that people chose to do, just like homosexuality, for example.
So, if somebody in that situation never gets to find out that there are choices, is that bad? Because if they don't know about it, they won't suffer from the sort of the questions and they won't think, they won't have the sort of the confusion of going, oh no, there's loads of different options out here, how do we get out of this religion? If they think that this is how it is,
yeah,
then they die, then is that bad?
So you're saying, in a roundabout way, you're saying is ignorance bliss?
In a nutshell,
yeah.
In fact, yeah.
Maybe ignorance is bliss as far as the individual is concerned because they are just encapsulated in that little thing. But I think that then negates the world that's around them. So I would always argue more information is better, and holding the least amount of false beliefs is always the best way to go. Anyway, I'm going to put this down to the three things. Okay, so Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, and sex. I'm well aware that these three topics are not only the huge topics anyway, so I can't really get through this in one podcast either. But there's so many things, but obviously they can just keep coming up. I'm going to narrow it down. Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, and sex. I've made myself a little bullet point list, so I'm just going to go through them. So feel free to chip in if you want to stop at any point. But
You're talking to me?
Yes, because the viewers are going to listen to this after time.
Ah, right.
Yeah, we're not live. Despite me saying live from top of the Watchtower, we're not really live.
No.
And we're not really at the top of... No, we're at the top of the Watchtower. Yeah.
We agreed that.
The drawbridge has been drawn.
It has.
Here we are.
Do we need to leave a little gap for a sound effect?
No, it would have already been up,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah. I'm thinking like if we ever get like a live guest on the show, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be like on Lord of the Rings, I'm gonna be like, light the beacons, and then like we set fire and then I put some like fire kindling in the background as like a special effect, and then you hear some like epic music in the background, and then like each one keeps setting on fire until eventually it reaches a person, which in real life it's just technology, innit? We're just gonna like get someone on Skype and that'll be it, but in my world it'll be light the beacons. Anyway, okay, so Adam and Eve. First of all, my problem when I was young was always incest. Couldn't get my head around it. Adam and Eve, they have children.
Were they brother and sister?
Well, people say, well, no, they weren't, because they were Adam and Eve. They were the first couple. But as we should all know, or if you give a toss about this type of thing, which I guess you do because you're listening to the show, or you're here, in which you are, incest. But Eve is created from Adam's rib. So now, thousands of years later, now we know about science. We understand that Eve, obviously, you know, if you believe in magic and you believe God can do whatever he wants, you can just reject that by going, yeah, but God wouldn't have given Eve the exact genetic code, would he?
No.
But in literal terms, if you were to create a human being from the cells of another human being, they would effectively be a clone, albeit, she's a female, but they would be genetically identical.
So basically they have clone sex.
Clone sex, yeah.
But
Is that masturbation?
I would. Do you know what? I've
Oh,
never
my word.
searched for clone sex.
I've just
That's
thought.
probably the only thing I've never searched for on porn sites.
I've just
Try it.
I've just thought about Adam and Eve in the. I've never thought about it in that light before, but now, thinking of Genesis, I have just had a revelation. Oh, Adam and Eve. It's not masturbation. I get that, but like they're genetically identical. Some Christian apologetics get around that by saying, well, Adam and Eve, they were perfect back then, so the same rules didn't apply, which is all very well and good. But if you can close your eyes to incest, and you believe that God can do anything, then you're pretty much just like closing your mind to just being like, yeah, well, because Bible, Jesus, God, and angels.
Why is incest so bad? Did I just say that?
You didn't. You just said that.
Right. Okay. But on a serious level, right? I've just thought about it.
Are you asking me as an atheist, or are you saying like in the scriptural context?
You don't have to be an atheist. I'm just asking you in the context of life. I just thought about it for about 4 or 5 seconds. Then, who tells us that incest is bad? Who gets to say that incest is bad?
Well,
I know that there's genetic issues.
Yeah.
I know that there's problems. I know that there's going to be more. What do you call it when a baby's before? Oh, I can't find my words. What do you call it when a baby's born with something? Not a genetic disorder.
Like congenital.
Congenital.
Right,
That's
okay.
the word I'm looking for. Congenital. Well done, Mr. Watchtower. Yeah. I know there's potentially lots more congenital deformities, issues, etc. But other than that, right? Because there's still babies born with disabilities now, without incest having anything to do with it. What's really wrong with incest? What is wrong with it? No one questions this. In fact, I can question this. In fact, thinking about it, I don't have a sister, but if I did,
she'd be hot.
the rebellion in me would be saying, "Who says I can't have sex with my sister?"
Wow.
I think she'll be the judge of that.
Okay.
I will.
I can tell you that I have a sister, and only a guy that doesn't have a sister would say that.
But I've got daughters, and I still believe incest. Fine, I'm only joking. No.
Right. Wait. The scriptural answer would be incest is wrong because God damn well said so. Right? Hey, I'll just fit in God damn. I didn't even do that on purpose. God damn well said so. Yeah. Incest is wrong, right? You can't do that. It says I can't remember the scriptures.
Okay,
and wait. So God says no. There's a scriptural basis for it. But
you're not answering. You're answering this question based on what the scriptures say.
No, I'm trying to give you both sides. I'm saying this is what a Christian would say.
Norris,
but
incest is bad because it says so in the Bible.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh my God,
why we're here?
What have I done? If you were a Christian, you'd say because the Bible said so. If you were a Muslim, I guess you'd say because the Quran said so. I don't know if the Quran says so. I obviously don't know the Quran as well as I know the Bible.
I read it all the time.
It may even be in the Hadith or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. But from like a let's say from a reality perspective, is that you don't really need to be told that incest is wrong.
Why?
It just sort of forms a natural abhorrence within us because it's evolutionarily speaking, it's difficult for your progeny to be successful if you commit incestuous acts. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that.
So basically, what you're saying is that people thought, yeah, makes perfect sense to try and have a kid with your sister or, whatever, your mum or whatever. And then eventually people realise that all these babies are being born with one leg, 3 eyes. Maybe it's not a good idea. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think they even need. I don't think they even needed to realise. This kid's got 3 eyes. I don't think it needed to be like that. I think it's just simply that
intelligent design. People are intelligently designed.
Right. Okay. So you got like
incest.
so there's crossbreeds, isn't there? Right. Like like you can have a liger, yeah, or you can have a mule or whatever, right?
I used to live in Burnley.
And when you get a crossbreed, almost always the crossbreeds they can't they're almost always infertile because the genetic information just isn't there for them to continue, and because there's a limited amount of genetic variation within the same family, the statistical likelihood is that they will just not reproduce enough successful offspring for incest to ever be a viable thing as far as population mechanics is concerned.
This is what I was just about to say. It's a really good answer, and I don't necessarily have a comeback to the.
But that doesn't mean you want to sleep with your mum.
Well, that's another podcast. Who wants to sleep with their mum? We invite people to. No.
Is incest all right? A former Catholic discusses.
Yeah. So. Why I'm no longer a Catholic? Because I enjoy incest. No, basically,
I think you could just ask for forgiveness. I think it'd still be fine, wouldn't it?
True,
it's just a sin like fiddling kids or
exactly,
or like not turning up for church or.
I guess what I'm getting at is you only live once. Why not try everything?
Fair enough. Variety is the spice of life.
But on a serious note, okay. I agree with your argument from a procreation point of view.
Yeah.
But to me, incest isn't really about making a baby. It's just saying, ooh, I want to satisfy this urge.
Oh, of course, yeah.
My sister could do that for me. Saves me going out the house. Saves me paying 50 quid.
Like, that's the thing, like, saves me going out the house. Like, you could have a...
And by the way...
Like, you could have a string of like, beautiful women just lining up outside in the street, but you're just like, saves me going out the house. I don't want to take this dressing gown off, do I?
Yeah, but when I say it saves me 50 quid, I didn't mean going to a brothel. I meant 50 quid is probably around about a ballpark figure for how much you'd have to spend on drinks when you're trying to forge a kinship with a potential sexual partner.
Because you just get on well with your sister, you'd just be like,
your sister's just there.
Can you just sort me out, please, love?
You don't have to get on well with her. You don't have to get on at all. What I'm saying is,
you don't have to get on.
You don't have to get on at all.
You don't have to get on.
You know, look. In fact, yeah, she has to get on. You don't have to get on. No. You don't have to get on. It's like why would you have to get on well? I mean,
right. Wait.
Marriage.
We don't stop.
How many married people get on? No one.
We don't need to dwell.
Right, let's move on.
We don't need to dwell on incest because if anybody knows anything about the Noah story, incest is going to come up again in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So right, okay.
We were racist last time, and now it's
just gonna. Okay, so we started
incest.
Right. Adam and Eve, right?
Go.
Incest, weird. Even like between themselves, they have kids. Yeah, Cain and Abel. More progeny that come after that. There's only one way that this happens. There's Adam, Eve, and then sleeping with the kids. That's the only way that it can happen.
Who slept with the kids?
Well, I'm saying Adam and Eve either slept with each other and just stuck with that, or they also slept with the kids.
Or the kids slept with
the kids slept with each other. But whichever way you look at it, it's incest, and that's it, right? And even though
it's got to start somewhere. Right? I mean, it's not like they had another option, was it? I mean, look, it's like saying.
Yeah.
I'll give you a say. Now, cannibalism is wrong. Yeah, no one's going to eat another person. But if you're really starving and there's no food there whatsoever, and you know that you're going to die, you probably eat someone. So
you're going to sleep with your sister and then eat her?
Yeah,
what is wrong with you?
So
you need God in your life.
So in a sense, I get the argument, but you could argue that if they were the first two human beings on Earth, incest wouldn't even exist in their eyes. They wouldn't know what incest was. They would just know that they had a pulsating phallus and a moist crevice.
Pulsating phallus and a moist crevice.
Wow. And they could, find a way of.
You said that you accentuated your S's so much then that I was imagining that you were the serpent that was like you were the tempting serpent and you're like that phallus isn't going to get into that crevice on its own. What's that? What's the Jungle Book? what's the song that the Jungle Book
the
snake
song
sings?
is,
The Trust in me. Yeah, that's you. You're that snake.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
let's wrap that up. Okay. Right.
So we all agree that
okay.
this is right. Okay.
Okay. Wait. We've gone on about genetics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Please bear in mind that I didn't even think evolution was like a thing when I had a problem with Adam and Eve. So, my sort of my mentality at the time, it didn't really have anything to do with the genetic variation just wasn't there. I didn't know what genetic variation was. I didn't understand evolution. I didn't have an inkling as to what it was, other than that it was quite clearly wrong, because a Boeing 747 would never just whiz around a scrapyard and just land as a Boeing 747, which is something that gets seriously posited over and over again by creationists, which Jehovah's Witnesses are. So I had no intellect as such behind this. This was just intuition. I was just like, Adam and Eve were on their own on the planet, and then they had sex. So that was weird enough for me, because, it was sex and I was little. So I was like, and then they have babies, do they? And then what happens with those babies? Oh, well, they have more babies to populate the earth. And I was like, say what? And that's it. There was no other rationale other than I was creeped out by it. It was only later that it started to sort of, solidify into some kind of idea. Another thing was arrogance as far as dominion over the earth. I always thought that was a bit weird. It's like, so man gets dominion over the earth. I was always very fond of animals. I was always very interested in the animal world, which was strange, because I would watch documentaries, and then when it got to like the evolution part, my mum would practically put her hand over my ears and it'd be like, la 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 la, yeah.
My mum managed to do that when a sex scene came on in Coronation Street. Anyway.
So you're trying to tell me that Catholics are sexually repressed? Well, once again, I am flabbergasted.
No, they put their hands over my ears, but then made me watch.
This will do you good.
The sound will not add to your arousal, son. Anyway, go on.
Right, okay. Another thing that I always found really strange, which this has been highlighted a lot by atheists, so I'm only confirming further what people have already looked up. But if you're new to this kind of thing, it's a peculiar thing that you can read and move on, which a lot of Christians do, or they just don't bother to read it at all. But there's on several occasions God comes down to the Garden of Eden. Like, instead of hanging around in heaven and being all omnipotent, which he's supposed to be, and being all like, omnipresent, the lot, he has trouble finding Adam and Eve. It's like, comes down to the garden, he's like, where's Adam and Eve gone? Like, he might not know. That always struck me as, just straight away, that was just like, but...
Might have been out there.
But you're the all-knowing Father. A little bit like Dogma, when God decides to, like, go into a skee-ball player for a little while, just to, like, feel what it's like as a human. I can never understand that, and it happens a little bit later as well, because it happens when he has to ask Cain about Abel. Where's your brother? And Cain's like, what? Oh, I'm going to tell you what happened, right? What happened? What? Why is he asking? Why is he even asking? Not only would he know, not only would he have already witnessed it, because he is everywhere at all times, but when he set the plan in motion from the beginning of existence, he would have already known that Cain was going to kill Abel. And it's as simple as that. So I can never get my head around that either. Also, he was supposed to have, like, made them skins to wear. That freaked me out as well. He wants all these animals naming, and he creates them all into existence just to, like, skin them and provide them with some clothes once they've eaten from the tree of knowledge. At which point he says, the day you eat of the truth of knowledge, you will surely die. True story. They don't die. They last for years and years and years after it.
To be fair though, they didn't have the ability to make polyester back then. So, and in reality, people still use animal skins now. So, even though for clothing, even though I get what you're saying, why would you make the animals to make clothes? At the end of the day, the human beings. I'm not arguing that this is true, by the way, but the human beings are the dominant animals on the planet, the most intelligent animals on the planet. So, I suppose a devout Christian would argue that, God's intention for the animals is to support humanity more than anything else.
But I'm not doubting that. Like even if you don't believe in evolution, you would still assume that because you've got canine teeth capable of tearing meat and molars capable of crushing veg, you're going to be able to eat both kinds. Like I've no problem with the fact that they would have, they technically have dominion, so that they can kill animals to eat them. I understand if that was a real thing, that's what would happen. My point is, why is God lowering himself to creating some clothes for them now that they've realised that they're naked? Why isn't he more pissed off with them? Why is he just like, I told you not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Now you know that you're naked. Now you know everything. So you also now that you've eaten from the tree of knowledge, you know what to do next to cover them tits up.
But in theory, if they hadn't have eaten from the tree of knowledge, he'd have never given them clothes, right? And they'd have probably died of pneumonia and probably wouldn't have been able to procreate, and then that would have been the end of the Bible.
Yeah, and that would have been all we'd ever had to have endured from the shit.
You would have had to make two more. It might have been, instead of Adam and Eve, it might have just been like John and...
I mean, they probably wouldn't have frozen to death anyway, because, this all came from, desert-dwelling areas. Unless you're a Mormon and you believe that the Garden of Eden was in Jackson County, Missouri, which is a little further north, I'm not going to lie.
Wow.
Anyway, moving on. I'm going to move to Noah and the Flood. You ready?
Noah and the Flood.
Noah and the Flood, which has been popularised many times, more noticeably recently, by none other than Russell Crowe. And what is pretty funny is that on the internet, there's a bit of a backlash from Christians, and I swear to you, Norris won't know this, guys, because Norris is without technology.
Norris has a life.
Yeah,
a real tangible life.
Actually, before I go into this, but maybe I should sort of explain. Mr. Watchtower, he is without wife and without child, therefore has the chance and the time to obsess over podcasts, blogs, debates, news, things like that. And so he gets his fill. Norris has a wife and 2 children, and therefore doesn't. So I kind of gather the information and I fire it back at Norris, and then we discuss. So I figured, why not make a frigging podcast out of that? Yeah?
Yeah, do it.
So that's essentially what we're doing.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we're doing what we would always do.
I wonder what this microphone was.
We're doing what we always do, but we're just going to stick a microphone out and drink more wine than usual in the hopes that it somehow creates the brain cells, like the brain cells are going to start bouncing off one another. Yeah. I don't think that's what alcohol's supposed to do. It's supposed to be a depressant.
Well, it's been 4 hours if you include the first podcast. It's not happened yet. So
yeah, there's been literally no wisdom. In fact, yeah, what we need to do that. I'll download some music and it'll be like in the background, right? And we'll do that thing where I say if you'd like a podcast that has more comedy than this one, go to the Bible Reloaded with Jake and Hugo. If you'd like well-articulated sentiment, go to the Thinking Atheist with Seth Andrews. If you're a big fan of Red Dwarf, go and listen to the Godless Smegcast. If you'd like to hear the dulcet tones of an Australian, go and listen to The Herd Mentality with Adam Reeks. Or if you'd like something with less intellect, less value, less comedy, and less production value, feel free to listen to this. Yeah. And then it'll bleed out the music, and then we'll get back into it.
Sounds, in fact, I'd listen to that over the others.
What?
I'd listen to this over the others.
Because you're in it, you self-absorbed ass.
No, I'll be thinking to myself, if someone advertises themselves as rubbish and not worth listening to, my instant reaction is, I'm going to listen to that.
Yeah.
I want to hear this thing that has no value, whereas if someone says, this is great, you're going to learn a lot from it, I'm thinking, who are you to tell me I'm going to learn a lot from it?
Yeah.
Wow. Someone said, spend an hour of your time watching or listening to this.
Yeah.
And you gain nothing. I'd probably watch it. Just to see if I gain nothing. Because I want to prove it wrong. I want to say, no, actually, I gain a lot.
You'd listen to that like a challenge. You'd be like, I bet you there's something I'll learn from that. Yeah. That's what you think.
I learn a lot about myself, actually. Give me time to reflect on some stuff.
While I'm listening to something that's shite. Yeah, no, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway.
Let's get back to the structure.
Yeah, back to the podcast.
Yeah.
The podcast that's worse than all the other podcasts, but who are we kidding? You're a glutton for punishment. You love it.
Yeah.
Okay, why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, part 2. Noah and the flood. So Russell Crowe's playing Noah, and I was just mentioning that Christians have actually been given a bit of a backlash online, which has been hilarious because they have been saying stuff, I swear to you, they've been saying, oh, we don't like it because it's not realistic. Anyway, so Noah. My honest, my sort of view of the whole Adam and Eve incest thing when I was younger, when I asked these questions, it was kind of brushed aside as in like Adam and Eve were perfect, it were different back then, blah blah blah. But then fast forward some years, and then we've got God is actually, he's all like, oh no, what have I created? What's going on this earth? You know, despite him, that we've just been through the whole omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent for a start. So he's decided, oh no, I've created all this stuff and it's all going wrong, even though he can see everything at all times. It's all going wrong. I'm not happy with all this debauchery and stuff. It's just gone tits up. I need to sort it out. And even though I'm an all-powerful God who could sort it out in any number of ways, quite literally an infinite amount of ways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drown everything on the earth.
It's a great idea.
Great idea. Right.
That's what I could...
I'm not going to just like pause time and pluck all the bad people out. I'm not going to get it right the first time
Just
either.
turn the temperature up about 12 degrees or something.
Could have
turn it down again when everyone's...
If that happened, if that was different though, you know, like if all of the stories weren't of floods, they were of like, you know, heat, decimation, that would be the flood story in reverse. It would just be like, and though God halted the heavens from raining, and he did turn up the temperature of the geographic core, and those would be that would be it. Anyway, okay, so I'm young at this point.
Yeah.
I'm a lover of animals. I've no idea about evolution. But I'm aware of the incest again. We've gone past the Garden of Eden now. People aren't they're not you know, they're not now perfect. Noah and his missus and a few, I think it's like 3 of the kids, I can't remember exactly. Some of the kids and their husbands or wives, right? I think it's 8 people. I may be wrong with that, but like, you know, we're talking a low figure, so low that the genetic variation could not continue once more. Again, I didn't know about genetic variation, but these people are supposed to get on this boat, and then when the rain stops and the water goes away, and they then procreate on the earth. You know, they are then the progenitors of the human race. Mm-hmm. But we're still talking incest all over again, outside of the Garden of Eden, where people weren't famous. I mean, famous, where people weren't perfect. Is that some kind of that's some kind of weird Freudian slip? I view perfection as being famous. Oh my God, I'm sorry guys. I just want you all to download this a lot so I can be famous, so I can be viewed as perfect, and then my mummy and daddy will love me.
And then I can be welcomed back into the Jehovah's Witness.
They'll say you're famous. Be an elder. Read from the scriptures. Aloft from the lectern. Okay, I'm sidelining. Stop it. Okay, let's ignore the incest part, even though that's still a battle.
Okay.
When you were doing the whole Catholic business when you were younger, what happened with the animals? Explain. You know, like in a hymn or anything like that. Did it explain to you what happened with the animals?
The animals came to
yeah, that's all the way.
Was that the one?
Yes, that's all the way for. Yeah, that's the one.
Was that the one? Yeah.
The animals came by two by two.
Hurrah!
Okay.
And something about the rain.
I think you've just equated 2 different things together there.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you still.
No, I do remember that. What happened to the animals?
2 by 2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2.
Was that a boy and a girl? Was that mentioned?
I presume so. Yeah, it is. It is mentioned.
Okay. Ah, makes sense now.
Yeah.
Now I believe the Bible.
Now you believe the Bible.
No, yeah, I thought it was 2 of the same sex, you see, and that was what really put me off religion. Now I know that it's a boy and a girl.
Just
I realised that obviously they could then have a kid, and then it's fine. You won't move on.
Oh my God! All them animals are gay. I'm not being a Catholic anymore.
It's quite ironic, actually. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So 2 by 2. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Genesis 6 says 2 by 2. Fast forward to Genesis 7. It actually says about them coming in sevens. The clean animals coming in sevens, and the filthy bastard animals coming in twos. So that wasn't a thing that I was very aware of when I was very young. But like when I was like 14, 15, I noticed that, and I just thought to myself, 2 by 2. I've always just been told 2 by 2. And if you ever look at any of the Jehovah's Witness material, you can download the PDFs online from jw.org. There's like a children's book, and a lot of it is good lessons. It's about being a nice human being. But it mentions Noah and the flood, and you can clearly see that the animation, the visual that's given there the illustration is 2 by 2, 2 by 2. There's even 2 bears on it, and then I immediately thought to myself, I wonder if they're the same 2 bears that were released to kill 42 children for the slight misdemeanor of calling a priest bald, because God did that apparently. God released 2 she-bears to kill 42 children for the crime of calling a Jesuit priest bald.
I'd love to ask the question of our bald leader, what he thinks about bears. Larry David.
All right, I was wondering who you meant that.
He is the leader of bald men.
He'd have a really good kick-off there, wouldn't he? Because of his Jewish nature.
What do you think of bears?
Anyway, moving on. We're coming on to too many minutes. Let's go. Okay, yeah. So 2 by 2s or sevens, that freaked me out for a start. The next one was the size of the boat. I was still very young, but I liked animal documentaries and stuff. I was always a fan of David Attenborough, even though I didn't know that he was a dirty heathen who loved evolution. He was on a show, and I remember watching it, and he said that the estimate of species is like somewhere in the region of 8 million species. Just an estimate, because some go into extinction. I didn't know it then, but some species have. Imagine that. But about 8 million. A closer estimate these days is about 8.7 million species. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's a lot of species. And some of them are really, really big. That's not difficult to comprehend. Even as a child, you just think, wow, millions of species. They're coming in 2 by 2, by the way. So we've got, even if you're going with a conservative estimate of 8 million, you've got 16 million things on that boat.
Yeah. So you're saying that that's how many species existed 2,000 years ago? How many years ago was this?
No, I'm saying.
How many years ago was this, roughly? Does it say?
What are you talking about? Noah and the flood? Or are you talking about me?
How long ago did Noah and the flood happen?
Oh, 1,000 years ago. This is like what we're talking like. Well, it's in Genesis, so these days we're talking like 6,000 years.
So were there that many millions of creatures in existence at that time?
Possibly not, but I'm saying like the whole of science understands that in general the species that are alive today are in excess of 8 million. So a few thousand years ago, even if they were much, much less, which they probably weren't, but I don't know. Let's go right down. Let's say there was only 1 million. That's still 2 million things.
Oh yeah. Just realised what you mean. You couldn't even fit them in Old Trafford.
You couldn't. But not just that. There's more specific things, right? Because this is what really got me. One of the things is marsupials that only exist in a very particular part of the earth, yeah, Australian and stuff, yeah. They're very particular, as in some of them are only a very particular thing from a very particular area. Just like pandas can only eat, the shoots of what's it called, bamboo, right? So the marsupials they're very particular, and they only come from a certain area, and that certain area is a long, long way away from Noah and his ark. As is some of the species from anywhere, wherever they come from, they've got to come from a long, long way. And some of those animals just simply couldn't make it. Some of the animals, the length of time that it would have taken them to get there, they don't even live that long. And some of the animals that would have been on the ark don't live long enough to have entered the ark and leave alive. Now, if you're willing to just believe that God can do anything and God is magic, you can just say, well, he just lengthened the lifespan, didn't he? That's a total cop-out.
Could have just created some more after the ark.
He could have done, but the Bible didn't say that.
It could have been like the banks today, or the government just print off. Yeah, we need more money.
Yeah.
Print more off it.
Yeah, like Noah's like, oh, dude, like this particular species of butterfly, like they're literally alive for like 3 days, so they died 3 days into our very long journey.
How does it happen?
So God just goes, oh, goes in the storeroom. We'll bring them right out. What kind are they? Size of the boat. The boat would have had to have been friggin' massive to fit all those species in. Even if we reduced each one of the species down to like a cup size or something like that, it would have had to be massive, and I mean massive. Now, Ken Ham, in all of his wisdom from Answers in Genesis, is doing the Ark project where they're trying to raise the funds to create what they deem to be an ark, like a replica. I really want a few zoos to maybe just like donate a great deal of animals, just for like a 1-day stint, and let's just see what fits in there. Noah died when he was 950. Fair play to him. I mean, he could have lasted out the 1,000 mark, couldn't he? But the point is, he's 100.
That should be the end of this conversation.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
The end of all these podcasts.
yeah, just like.
By the way, everyone,
if you
it says in the Bible that Noah was about 950 years old. Really?
Yeah, everyone should just be like.
It says that. Then what the hell am I reading?
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have shown you this a long time ago. But if you're listening, I recommend just looking at Joe Rogan on YouTube. About if you just type in like Joe Rogan Noah's Ark, he says even like a 6-year-old kid would be able to figure that out. Where the kid would just be like, "There's a lot of holes in that story," because there are. It's as simple as that. Like like a 900. Yeah, well, he wasn't 950 when he made the ark, but he was hundreds of years old when he was given the task of creating the ark. That's like a real thing. According to the Bible, hundreds of years old. Okay, and then once they've started repopulating the earth and everything, they've sorted out all the animals. Yeah, apparently the marsupials all managed to get all the way back to Australia. That happened. All the particular species that wouldn't even be able to last that long, like spiders from the Antarctic, somehow just made their way back over there. Things like that.
Google Maps wasn't invented.
Google Maps wasn't invented back then. They had no GPS on their mobile phones. They just had to make their way back the only way they knew how, which I guess is by divine intervention, I guess. Say what?
Did you ask the question of any of your elders at the time?
Not with regards to his age. Well, not that I remember anyway. I may have asked my mum. I'm not too sure.
Ask her again.
Maybe I ask her again, yeah. Okay, third and final. When I say third and final, there's a lot of reasons, but when I decided to do this particular thing for the podcast, I thought I'd try to just narrow down those, what were the specifics? What could I, when I sat down and really thought about my childhood and my formative years, shall we say, I just tried to sort of isolate those things. There's a lot more that will come up, but the third and final one, as far as this podcast is concerned, is sex. More so, religion in general, religion's obsession with it. Do you want to speak for a minute on sex, Norris? And Catholicism.
It won't take a minute.
It won't take a minute. Yes, that's it. That's a really good joke. That wasn't even. There was no setup for that. You just did it. That's brilliant.
Oh,
won't take a minute. Yes, won't take a minute. Does not take a minute. No. Maybe we get
finished.
maybe we get Mrs. Norris in on one of these sometime.
Fine. It's a sore subject then. So if you want to bring up sex in.
It's probably not a sore subject, not in a minute.
No.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Right, stop it. Okay.
So.
Religion in general, this is not going to be a revelation to anybody. There's a strange obsession with sex, in general, in most religions. Things like obsessions with chastity, obsession with virginity. As our mate Christopher Hitchens says in his God Is Not Great book, he explains that for some reason religions only want to view the well, how does he say it? He says religions only want to view the birth canal as a one-way street. Nothing can go inside it, just can't happen unless it's under the specific rules of a marriage that has been conducted under the eyes and the supervision and the agreement of God, and that's it. Weird.
Mm-hmm. But if you can consider that Noah's now lived it, it's not happening.
Well, that's kind of the point entirely, isn't it? It's like if God is magic and you're willing to believe weird stuff, the second you let weird shit in and you go, okay, it's like, I don't know if you did this. I did when I was a kid. I started reading, and when I would read big words that I didn't really understand when I was younger, it'd be like I'd read it and it'd be like, once I get to that word, I'd just be like, and just move on, and I just pretend the word wasn't really there, or I'd try to just make up some kind of context for it to be in, and I'd just move on. But it's like that with a lot of religious.
So what if you came to a word you don't understand?
Yeah, I'd just be like,
for example, the cat sat on the. Oh, I can't be doing this one.
Yeah, just be like, yeah, the cat sat on the and then move on, and I just invent some word for hat. It'd just be like just whatever, and then I move on, right? And that's kind of how it is with a lot of I'm saying Christians just because that's what we have most dealings with, but that's what Christians can do. Once you do that and move on, it's all about, Jehovah's Witnesses will say this a lot as well. It's about making the truth your own. Yeah. Like, basically that whole, we've all got faith, haven't we? Jehovah's Witnesses will say, it does say in the Bible that you've got to make the truth your own, and that to them means you've got to block your rationale sometimes. You've got to stop your brain cells firing, and you've got to just understand that what is written in the Bible is right, and it's right because it's right because it's right. So if you think it's wrong, you're wrong. It's right. Move on.
Who are you talking about? Pretty much everyone who.
Pretty much every religious person that has, not every religious person, but every religious person that has anything vested in the legitimacy of the Bible or any of the of the doctrines that come from any of the theistic books. But the main thing, as far as I'm concerned, is it turns into like a strange cherry picking, and it's like that. Then I know that there'll be Christians that may or may not listen to this podcast, and the second we say things like I was saying about sex, Noah, the flood, I know they'll be scoffing and genuinely as well, like not like in a kind of, oh God, I hope I'm right. I mean, because they've decided that it's right, they will genuinely be scoffing at what I'm saying. Just like, he doesn't even understand the whole Noah's Ark thing. He doesn't even understand that all of the water came down. Or, like all that. Like one.
Oh, that's such an easy one.
Yeah, it's like, we've debunked this atheist argument so many times, and they will genuinely think that. But everything's there. Like, there's so many things that they'll say, out of context. It's out of context. But if you can sit down any Christian and just say, in what context? Let's say, for example, one of the main things, again, another podcast, but let's just say, for example, slavery. It's not only mandated, but there's also very specifics in the Bible of how you can own a slave, for what price you can buy them, whether or not you can sell somebody into slavery, even the loopholes of how to ensnare people for life. The point is the Bible does genuinely mandate it. It does. And if you ask a Christian or anybody, under what context is it okay for you to own another human being and just wait for an answer to come back? Under what context? The only context that is ever comfortable for a Christian or for anyone who believes in a holy book, if it's mandating that holy book and therefore they believe it to be right, we fall into the eerie world of divine command theory. And for those of you that are listening that don't know what it is, divine command theory is just basically, if God says it automatically becomes right because God said it. So if you've got your child and you have your child with you and you love your child and you want to protect your child and you don't want anything to go wrong to your child, but then God says, like he said to Abraham, I want you to kill that child, it's right because God said so. Now, I would hope that these days every fibre in your being would fight against divine command theory and think, I don't care if God said it. I do not want to kill my child, and I am not going to kill my child. But Abraham is held as a moral exemplar for binding his child up and taking him up on some mountains, ready to set fire to the guy and kill him or something. That's okay. It's okay because God said it's okay. So if God says it's okay, it's officially okay. That is just that's a twisted logic as far as anybody could possibly be concerned. Mm-hmm. Anyway, why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness? Sex, obsession with it. It's weird. It's focused. It's binding. It is what it is, and I think everyone's really clear about what it is, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I just want to explain that just like many fundamentalist Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses don't agree with sex before marriage. And even though I didn't understand the theological basis for this exactly when I was young, I was obviously, a 15-year-old lad who was thinking about sex, even if not partaking in it. I was definitely thinking about it.
Or did you leave the Jehovah's Witness so you could then embark on sex?
Right, yeah, okay, adventure? That makes sense. Okay, yeah. In spirit of the podcast title,
I want to know your exact age.
Yeah, 15 years, 4 months, 3 days.
That's it.
Let's without any. I don't really need any gory details, but let's suffice to say that when I was when I told my mum that I'm not going to continue with this, I was going out with somebody when I was at school. I had a girlfriend, and it was all very cloak and dagger. She obviously never met my parents. She never came back to my house. They never knew her or knew her name, anything. Which is part of the thing that really got to me, because not because I had a girlfriend and I wanted her to meet my parents. Did I? Hell, I was 15 years old. Why would I want my parents to meet my girlfriend? That wasn't part of it. What was part of it was that I knew a lot of people that had really good relationships with their parents, and it was part and parcel of the relationship with the parents to understand that this kind of thing was happening. And with my parents, it just wasn't happening. Why wasn't it happening? Because it wasn't happening. Because you didn't go out with people that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. And you couldn't walk down the street holding hands. And I was actually caught holding hands with her by some Jehovah's Witnesses who then passed it on to my mum and dad. And my mum had a right old go at me. And as it goes, we ended up breaking up roughly around that time. But it had nothing to do with that. We just broke up and that was that. But this is one of the reasons why coming out as an atheist or an apostate is usually it's linked with coming out of the closet as if you were gay, because the sort of the sensations that you experience as a young person are quite similar if your parents are as close-minded as someone who is homophobic. It just so happens that a lot of fundamentalist Christians are also homophobic. Does that make sense? So that's one. That's why it really plays on you, and you just think, I can't share this part of me with my parents, despite my mum always being. She was always very much come and speak to me about things. We'll talk about it. She did the right thing as far as she was concerned. But talking about it, if you understand that talking about it means that you probably won't be able to see that person again, or you're going to be told, don't do that, don't be with a worldly person, don't have sex before marriage. Why not? Because you don't. Abstinence only. Just say no. Yeah. Just say no. I've heard by Roy Zimmerman, who is a hilarious dude with his guitar and stuff. Look him up, Roy Zimmerman. He explains before one of the songs that he sets off singing is he says abstinence only is the equivalent of saying just hold it, potty training. Because it's never going to happen. It's a biological thing. Sooner or later, you will have sex. Sooner or later, you're going to shit your pants. To summarise, Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, and sex. That's basically what switched me off. I was never into it enough, and I was never convinced of things enough to take the plunge and get baptised. And I knew for a fact that as I was approaching my 16th year and finishing my GCSEs, whatever they are in America. I don't know what they are, or around the world. It's the equivalent of whatever it is that you do at high school. Once I was collecting those GCSEs and taking those exams, I knew that the unspoken rule was basically, now you're old enough, now you get it, now you can fully acknowledge what this thing is that we're doing. So, are you ready to be baptised? Nobody said that to me, but I understood that that was the next thing on the cards, and I just had my heart in my mouth thinking, am I ready to be baptised? What do I need to acknowledge? What do I need to accept fully if I'm going to be baptised? It's all of these things.
That's the beauty of being a Catholic. You don't have to worry about all that.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses do take this thing very seriously. They also don't baptise you when you're young. They baptise you when I say when you're ready, but they baptise you when they deem that you are of an age and you have a cognitive capacity to get it and to accept it and to understand it, and then accept that as part of your life, which does make sense, But I had been indoctrinated since being very young, but I just never quite accepted it. I still sort of believed parts of it, but I never quite accepted it and never understood that was my path. So I told my mum. She wasn't very happy. I remember that night very, very clearly. I'll go through that another time, but that was a freaky time. But yeah, those were the things that turned me off. Those are the reasons, really, why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. All the reasons why I am still not a Jehovah's Witness, because I looked into it again a few years later to figure out exactly what it was that I disagreed with. I'll go through that as part of the podcast, as an ongoing process. But basically, when I was younger, those were the things. Okay, so we don't have a great deal of time left. So shall we go through the news?
Go through the news, hit me.
Okay. This is Watchtower&Awakening, and it's time for the news. That's the part where he goes. Okay, so this week I'm going to give you 4 stories. Yes, 1 is still fake, 3 are real, but I'm going to keep them very short this time. Okay. Number 1. Polish company Inglot have created nail polish called O2M. They were recently put to the Muslim test and certified as halal. That's right, halal nail polish. Number 2. A fringe comedy show in Adelaide, Australia, has been sticking to its guns after criticism of the show entitled Come Heckle Christ, in which a Renaissance Jesus lookalike, Joshua Ladgrove, riffs his way through audience heckles in character as Jesus Christ while sticky taped to a cardboard cross. Number 3. The Danish government has banned halal and kosher slaughtering of animals, and its health minister says animal rights come before religion. Number 4. Megachurch pastor, here's a name for you, Megachurch pastor Dick Ramsbottom in Bible Belt, America, has caused scandal this week when he became the latest anti-gay preacher to be caught in the loving embrace of another man. And that, Norris, is the news.
Now I have to decide.
Now, I'm going to let you decide which one of those you think is the false one, and then I'll go into a little bit of detail of the other ones. So, okay, so we've got
Halal nail polish.
Halal nail polish. We've got the fringe comedy show in Adelaide, Australia. Come Heckle Christ. We have the Danish government banning halal and kosher slaughtering of animals. And we have megachurch pastor Dick Ramsbottom being caught in the arms of another man.
Oh, it's too perfect to have Dick and Bottom.
I was going to say that
caught in the hands of another man.
Exactly. This is why it's difficult, isn't it? Because a lot of things that you read about religion in the news, they're so ridiculous that even though one of them is outlandish and ridiculous, they could still be real.
Although I think every single one of them could.
They're all mental, yeah.
Be true.
Yeah.
But also, they all could be true. I would say Dick Ramsbottom did not ram someone in the bottom.
You are aware, I assume, that there is a televangelist in America that's called Oral. That's his actual name. Oral Roberts.
You didn't give me that information before I made the decision.
Just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a lot of crazy shit out there.
No, Dick Ramsbottom. I'm going to go with that as being the false one.
Right. Well, if I have access to this in my sound effects, you'd be getting a little bing noise, because you're right. Woo! Yeah. I even stuck in an extra one. No, but you're right. Dick Ramsbottom was too good, wasn't it? I just thought to myself, there's been a lot of people. There's been like Ted Haggard. Again, if you listen to Roy Zimmerman, listen to Roy Zimmerman's Ted Haggard. Roy Zimmerman, completely heterosexual. Look up that song; it's really good. And on one of the versions of the song, it goes through the different preachers. So you've got like Ted Haggard, somebody Reeks, Bob Allen. There's a whole string of them, and basically, the more anti-religious, the more religious and the more anti-gay you are, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to be caught with your pants down with a guy, because it just happened. But yeah, Dick Ramsbottom, it was too perfect, wasn't it? So too perfect. So perfect. I mean, I'm quite proud of myself. I was hoping that you wouldn't pass that one, because I was going to be like, Dick Ramsbottom. I wrote the words Dick Ramsbottom. Yeah. Well, anyway, you've done it right. Okay, so let's just go through that very briefly before we wrap up. Okay, Polish company Inglot have created nail polish called O2M, and were recently put in a Muslim test and certified as halal. True story. Okay, so this particular brand has been around since 2009, but last year an Islamic scholar called Mustafa Umar blogged about it, and sales rocketed. Basically, it's a type of formula that allows water to transfer through. So nail polish is usually like varnish even. Muslims have to wash their hands completely before praying. So obviously putting nail varnish on would just be a nightmare, wouldn't it, to take it off again, to wash properly, because the water has to touch every part of the hands.
Wash your fingernails before you put your nail varnish on?
No, because they have to wash before they do the prayers throughout the day. So to put nail varnish on to remove it would just be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Anyway, so Muslim women, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm going to pronounce it Fargana Shafi said, this is a Muslim woman from Dakar, she said, by putting on nail paint, you cannot make wudu, which in parentheses says to purify oneself with water before prayer, as one cannot pass through parts of the nail. So the water can't pass through the nail. So basically, you got to wash your hands clean. So this particular stuff helps you do that. Muslim women polled in Dakar, where that Fargana was from, said that although concerned about multiple layers risking water not permeating, most were willing to try it. Now, the reason that this freaks me out is because if you're so bothered that God cares whether or not the water is going to touch your nails, don't take the chance. Mm-hmm. If you're so bothered, it kind of reminds me about I don't know if you know this or not, but it kind of reminds me about Mormons. Mormons, once upon a time, they couldn't have chocolate or caffeine. So they just didn't have chocolate or caffeine, just because that was one of the edicts. That was just it. But then all of a sudden, I'm not too sure about caffeine, but definitely chocolate. They were suddenly allowed to have chocolate. So all of a sudden, they're just filling their faces with chocolate, and it's like, yeah, chocolate, sugar high. But it's weird though, isn't it? 'Cause it's like, oh no, I'm not going to have any of that chocolate. Are you mad? I'm a Mormon. And then all of a sudden they just go, yeah, news just in, chocolate's good, guys. And then they just fill their faces with chocolate. I just don't get it. Anyway, it's kind of like in 1978 when they decided that black people weren't beneath them. Oh, Mormon burn. Oh. Yeah, suck on that, Mitt Romney. Okay, so the Fringe Comedy Festival, I thought that was good. This is very believable. In Adelaide, in Australia, this guy Josh, he's doing a Come Heckle Christ show that he has done elsewhere in Australia, but it's only when a bishop came across it that it ever kicked off. Okay, so in The Guardian it says the show ran successfully at last year's Melbourne Fringe, but sparked controversy sparked controversy in Adelaide on Thursday when Catholic Archbishop Philip Wilson wrote to parishioners calling the show blasphemous. Imagine that. And this is him, I'm quoting him now. While I am a strong advocate for freedom of speech and the support of the arts, I believe this production is extremely offensive to people of any religious persuasion, obviously not, and insulting to many South Australians, the letter read. It is outrageous and entirely inappropriate for this sort of anti-Christian, blasphemous performance to be included in a public festival such as the Fringe. I love it how he tries to include people of any religious beliefs, like anyone else would care. Of course they wouldn't care, because it's not their particular version of a particular God from a particular holy book. But also, so what? Like,
even if it does offend people,
would he have given a shit if they were taking the mick out of Muhammad? Would he have given a shit?
Even if it does offend every single other religious person in the world, right? In theory, let's talk about it hypothetically.
Yeah.
It still doesn't matter, because you still have a choice about whether you go and watch it or not. I mean, it's not like you're being forced to watch it.
Oh yeah, but then we're going down the freedom of speech route, aren't we? Which would, again, that would be another podcast all in itself. But the long story short is, he just did the show in different parts of Australia, and then a bishop kicks off about it, and not only is he asking other faiths to get in on the action by saying, "Oh, I'm sure this is offensive to people of all faiths, isn't it? Isn't it, guys? Isn't it? Muslims, Mormons, guys.
Hey, you can put sound effects in it.
Jehovah's Witnesses, little tumbleweed, just rolling by. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's stupid, because it's like he's trying to rely on what Dan Dennett calls Dan Dennett. Look him up if you don't already know who he is. Do it. He's kind of like he's a bit like Santa Claus. If you look on if you look on Watchtower&Awakening.com, you'll see him in the suggested reading list, as well as in a couple of the debates as well. He's one of the 4 horsemen. Anyway, it's what he deems, or rather what he has coined as belief in belief. So this bishop is hoping that people of other beliefs, that ordinarily, on any other day, with any other subject matter and any other prophet, he would have fallen out with. But just today, because he wants a bit of protection, he's like, oh, come on, guys, he's oppressing our religious beliefs. Anyway, let's leave that where it is, because that just is what it is, isn't it? Okay, so the Danish government has banned halal and kosher slaughtering of animals. Its health minister says animal rights come before religion. So, yeah. So, halal and kosher meat, you slit the throat of a conscious animal, you let it bleed out, and even though the rest of the world shouldn't be, like, feeling superior, like, oh, we don't do that to our animals, we just cage them in tiny areas and electrocute them. I'm not saying that that's all right, because animal welfare is an entirely separate issue. Again, probably another podcast, whatever. But the point is if you are slaughtering animals under halal or kosher rules and regulations, you're effectively claiming the religious right to cause suffering to an animal that doesn't need to have that suffering put upon it. Simple as that. Okay? Yeah. So it's kind of like if you were walking the Green Mile and you were going to go and die, you're going to be put to death. Yeah? If you need to be put to death, or I don't really like that term really, because like people, I'm not saying people need to be put to death, but let's say you're going to be put to death and you have no choice in the matter. People who are going to be left behind when you are dead would at least need to have they'd at least need to think that person died and had to die, but was killed under the right circumstances. So what I'm saying is, they wouldn't throw you off a building and wait for you to hit the ground. It's things like lethal injection, or like the most humane way. Likewise with animals, if you're going to kill an animal, which I'm not saying I'm for or against, I'm saying if you're going to kill an animal, kill it with the least amount of suffering possible. And halal and kosher has not in any way, shape or form, despite what they tell you on the websites, they have not in any way, shape or form been proved to make the animal suffer less, because it needs to be conscious and it have its throat slit. So if you can reduce the suffering, reduce it. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Anyway, so that was the news. Yeah. Twice on the trot. Right, so we're going to keep this condensed into one single hour. I was going to move on, you know, as part of the whole not being a Jehovah's Witness, or the reasons why, because my whole perspective is from when I was quite a bit younger. It's now been, 15 years maybe? 15 years since I was any part of it.
Almost the same amount of time that you were part of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm exactly 50-50. Yeah. Amazing. I was going to create a new segment in this podcast, and it was going to be entitled Young People Ask, because any Jehovah's Witness that is a young person will have used the Young People Ask. It used to be a book. I was just talking to you earlier, wasn't I, when I was saying, when I was younger, I had a Young People Ask book. Questions young people ask, answers that work. That was the book that I had. Now, technology's moved on. We've got the PDFs, right? So I've got all the PDFs. I've downloaded them, and I was going to do a little segment that was basically addressing the different issues in the Young People Ask books. 2 volumes they are now in podcast form. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that, and I'm going to turn that into like a mini-series. So we're going to do the podcast with individual episodes, and then we're going to do the mini-series of Young People Ask, answers that work, or maybe let's say answers from atheists, or answers that actually work, shall we say. And Jake and Hugo, if you're listening, it's going to be a little bit like the Bible Reloaded, but it's not the Bible. It's questions young people ask reloaded. It probably won't have as much of a viewership, but I think it will be definitely important for the people that were like me back then that are young now, if that makes any kind of sense.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Right, well, I'm afraid Norris didn't get to speak much this episode because it was more about why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, and there's only one of us at this table that has any experience in that area. I just want to say that as of yet, Norris doesn't know this because he doesn't involve himself with technological advancements of human civilization. But he's got a phone. But Norris, we've got like over 100 hits on YouTube for the first episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that the same person hitting it 100 times?
Yeah, it's just me. Reload. There's 385 followers on Twitter as we now speak. Wow. And we're now available on iTunes and Stitcher. We've only just become available on Stitcher, like pretty much today. And iTunes was a couple of days ago, and we've had about 25 downloads since then. So, all I'm saying is, there's a good chance that, let's say, even if it is me reloading a lot of times, we've got more than a third listener. Anyway, right, okay, so we're going to go. That's going to be the podcast, and have a little look out for questions young people ask coming soon, maybe next month.
God bless.
God bless. Science bless.
Science bless.
Bye.
Bye.